The initial kiss, though brief and gentle, irrevocably altered the landscape of our relationship. It was as if a silent, invisible boundary had been crossed, and there was no turning back. Every shared glance, every lingering touch of hands, every quiet moment together now carried a new weight, a deeper meaning that hummed between us. The world, through my lens, seemed to gain a new depth, infused with the vibrant, sometimes dizzying, colors of burgeoning emotion. We spent hours talking in the days that followed, delving into corners of our lives we had previously kept guarded. The conversations stretched late into the night, sometimes over steaming mugs of tea at my apartment, sometimes whispered softly on the quiet beach under a canopy of stars. It felt as though, with that one kiss, a dam had broken, allowing a torrent of unspoken thoughts and feelings to flow freely. Brittany spoke of her childhood, of the unwavering passion for the ocean that had driven her since she was a little girl, and of the quiet ache of a past heartbreak that had left her guarded, wary of vulnerability. She spoke with an open honesty that both captivated and humbled me, laying bare her hopes and fears with a courage I deeply admired. And I, the usually reserved Willa, found myself revealing vulnerabilities I had long kept hidden, even from myself. I spoke of the solitary nature of my artistic pursuit, the way my camera had often felt like a shield against the complexities of human connection. I confessed to the quiet loneliness that sometimes accompanied my dedication to art, a shadow that had always lingered at the edges of my otherwise fulfilling life. It was difficult, this act of stripping away my carefully constructed composure, exposing the raw, tender parts of myself. But with Brittany, it felt safe. Her presence was an unwavering anchor, offering solace and understanding that slowly, but surely, began to mend parts of me I hadn't realized were fractured. I noticed the subtle ways she showed her care. The way she'd listen intently, her blue eyes filled with an empathetic warmth, without offering quick fixes or platitudes. The gentle pressure of her hand on my knee when I spoke of a difficult memory. The quiet way she'd simply be there, her unwavering presence a balm to my often overthinking mind. Our bond deepened, woven from these threads of shared stories, newfound trust, and a growing mutual respect. We discovered the nuances of each other's personalities, her infectious optimism balanced by my thoughtful introspection, her spontaneous energy complemented by my methodical approach. Our differences, which had once seemed like potential points of conflict, now felt like complementary halves, each enriching the other. The physical closeness between us grew naturally, an organic extension of our emotional intimacy. There were more lingering touches, more shared silences where words weren't needed, our eyes conveying volumes. Her hand would find mine effortlessly as we walked, her fingers intertwining with mine in a comfortable, easy fit. These were not grand gestures, but small, tender affirmations of a connection that was steadily blossoming, strengthening with each passing day. The tentative exploration of that first kiss had blossomed into a profound, multifaceted intimacy, drawing us closer into a world I was only just beginning to truly inhabit. Our bond, once a delicate bud, had now blossomed into an undeniable romance, rich with understanding and a profound, quiet affection. Each day unfolded new layers of our connection, revealing nuances that constantly surprised and delighted me. The initial awkwardness had completely vanished, replaced by a comfortable intimacy that felt as natural as breathing. We navigated the world as a united front, a quiet synergy between us. There were the unspoken curiosities of others, the lingering glances or hushed whispers that sometimes drifted our way. But these external perceptions seemed to dissolve in the face of a serene confidence that came from our solid foundation. In those moments, I would often find my hand instinctively reaching for Brittany's, our fingers intertwining, a silent declaration of our bond that needed no words. Willa, the solitary artist, the meticulous observer from behind the lens, found herself transforming in ways she never could have anticipated. My art, once a solitary pursuit, had gained new depth, infused with the vibrant hues of my experiences with Brittany. She would often accompany me on my shoots, not intruding, but simply being there, sometimes reading quietly, sometimes sketching in her own notebook, her presence a comforting anchor. I found my compositions growing bolder, my subjects imbued with a greater sense of emotional resonance. The ocean, which had always been my muse, now felt like a mirror, reflecting not just its own vastness, but the expansive possibilities of my heart. Brittany, in turn, thrived in the quiet acceptance I offered. I saw her vibrant energy, her unwavering passion for conservation, not as a stark contrast to my calm, but as a dynamic force that balanced and uplifted me. We learned to anticipate each other's moods, to offer comfort with a simple look, to share a knowing smile across a crowded room. Our arguments, when they arose, were discussions approached with mutual respect and a genuine desire for understanding, rather than the sharp exchanges of our first meeting. One afternoon, we were at the beach, watching a pod of dolphins arc gracefully through the waves. I had my camera, but for once, it hung forgotten around my neck. Instead, I simply watched, my hand clasped in Brittany's, feeling the rhythmic beat of the ocean against the shore, the warmth of the sun on my face. She leaned her head on my shoulder, a comfortable weight that filled me with an indescribable sense of belonging. As the dolphins disappeared into the horizon, she turned her face towards mine, and we shared a soft, brief kiss, quiet, familiar, a reminder of the connection that had rooted itself deep within us. "You know," she murmured, her voice soft, "I used to think my passion for the ocean was all-consuming. But being with you, it's like seeing the whole world through a clearer lens. Everything feels more vibrant, more meaningful." I squeezed her hand, a quiet acknowledgement of the profound truth in her words. She had not only helped me see the world differently through my camera lens, but she had also helped me experience it with an open heart, a profound sense of connection I never knew existed. The quiet hum that had begun as a mere ripple had grown into a steady, resonant chord, anchoring me in a way I hadn't realized I needed. Our connection had become a sanctuary, a vibrant, living space where we both found solace, inspiration, and an unwavering sense of home. "It sounds like a lot," she offered one afternoon, after I'd rambled about a particularly draining charity ball. She was polishing a glass case, her movements methodical and calming. "It is," I admitted, a sigh escaping me. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm playing a role I never auditioned for." She paused her polishing, meeting my gaze. "Perhaps," she said, her voice soft, "the most interesting roles are the ones we choose to write for ourselves." There was a quiet strength in her words, an underlying wisdom that resonated deeply within me. I found myself observing her more closely. I learned that she took the bus to work, that she packed her lunch, a modest meal in a simple container. Details that, in my world, were invisible, yet in hers, spoke volumes about her resilience and self-reliance. She was so different from anyone I knew. She wasn't chasing status or wealth. She was simply existing with a quiet dignity that was profoundly attractive. One day, I saw her hesitate at the end of her shift, pulling a small, worn paperback from her bag. It was a collection of poems by Emily Dickinson. I felt a surge of unexpected pleasure. "Dickinson," I said, a soft smile touching my lips. "A woman of quiet depth." She looked up, surprised, a genuine delight sparkling in her eyes. "You read her?" "My grandmother used to read her to me," I confessed, a faint memory of a sun-drenched library and a gentle voice surfacing. Before everything became about appearances. A comfortable silence settled between us, rich with unspoken understanding. We weren't just customer and sales associate anymore. We were two women who found solace in the quiet observations of life, in the words of a poet who understood the weight of internal worlds. The store was nearing closing time. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly. I watched her pack her bag, the simple leather worn smooth with use. An idea, bold and slightly terrifying, formed in my mind. It was a risk, a step outside the carefully delineated boundaries of our interactions. "Diane," I began, my voice a little unsteady. I was wondering, there's a new exhibition at the Sterling Gallery, a collection of contemporary silver artistry. I thought of your sketches and your appreciation for craftsmanship. Would you be interested in seeing it with me? My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I had cloaked the invitation in the guise of shared interest, but the underlying hope was clear, at least to me. It was an invitation to step out of Elysian Luxe, out of my gilded cage, and into a space where we could simply be ourselves, together. Her response held an entire universe of possibilities. Diane paused, her hand still on her bag. Her gaze flickered to the gallery poster I'd discreetly left on the counter, then back to my face. I held my breath, bracing myself for a polite refusal, a gentle reminder of the invisible lines that separated our worlds. But then, a soft smile touched her lips, a genuine one that reached her eyes. "The Sterling Gallery," she mused, her voice a thoughtful hum. "I've always admired their collection." "I'd like that very much, Joyce." "Thank you." Relief washed over me, a sensation so potent it almost made me dizzy. "Great," I managed, my voice a little too eager. "How about Saturday? 2 o'clock?" She nodded. "Saturday it is." Our first outing away from the polished confines of Elysian Luxe felt different, imbued with a quiet electricity. I picked her up, hands that shook slightly as I pulled my car up to the address she'd given me, a modest, well-maintained apartment building in a part of the city I rarely frequented. She emerged, dressed in a simple, dark-tailored jacket and trousers, looking elegant and utterly herself. She carried a quiet confidence that filled the space around her. The gallery was surprisingly crowded. As we walked through the exhibition, side by side, our conversation flowed effortlessly. Diane's insights into the artistry, her keen eye for detail and technique, utterly captivated me. She spoke about the artist's intent, the texture of the metal, the play of light. I found myself seeing the pieces through her eyes, appreciating them on a deeper level. "Do you ever think about pursuing your own designs?" I asked, as we stood before a particularly striking sculpture of intertwined branches. She looked at the piece, her expression thoughtful. "Sometimes," she admitted, her voice soft. "It's a dream. But dreams need time and resources. Life has a way of prioritizing other things." A subtle wistfulness touched her tone. "What things?" I pressed gently, sensing a deeper story there. She turned to me, her brown eyes holding a hint of a past I couldn't decipher. "Responsibilities," she said simply. "Family. Making sure the bills are paid." I understood. Her world was one of practicalities, a stark contrast to my own where such concerns were largely absent. Yet, there was no resentment in her voice, only a quiet acceptance. As we moved through the gallery, our shoulders occasionally brushed. Each time, a warmth spread through me, a subtle awareness of her presence. We found ourselves lingering before a display of delicate silver earrings, shaped like tiny, unfurling leaves. "These remind me of your sketches," I whispered, my voice closer than intended. She turned, her face inches from mine. Her brown eyes, usually so composed, held a fleeting vulnerability, a shared moment of connection. The air between us seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken emotion. For a long, silent moment, our gazes held, and the world outside the gallery, the hum of conversations and the polished marble, faded away. Then, she leaned in, and we shared a soft, gentle kiss, quiet, sure, a confirmation of the bond growing between us. It was a small, tender act, but it felt like a door opening, revealing a future I'd never dared to imagine. The memory of that moment in the gallery, the quiet certainty in Diane's eyes, lingered with me for days. It was a feeling I had never experienced before, a profound sense of recognition and belonging that rattled the foundations of my carefully constructed world. Our outings continued. Quiet dinners at small, unassuming restaurants Diane knew, walks in forgotten city parks, evenings spent talking for hours on park benches, sharing stories that revealed the contours of our lives. I learned about her childhood, the struggles her family faced, the sacrifices she made to help support them. There was a quiet strength in her narrative, a resilience that only deepened my admiration. She, in turn, listened intently to my tales of gilded loneliness, the unspoken expectations of my family, the pressure to conform to unspoken norms. I found myself confiding in her things I had never breathed to anyone else. My mother, I admitted one evening, as the city lights twinkled around us, she has a vision for my life. A particular kind of husband, a particular kind of home. A perfect continuation of the Sterling legacy. A bitter laugh escaped me. I sometimes feel like a carefully chosen heirloom, meant to be displayed. Diane reached out, her hand gently covering mine on the bench between us. It was a brief, comforting touch, not overly familiar, but deeply emotionally resonant. "And what about your vision, Joyce?" she asked softly, her gaze steady. "What do you want?" Her question hung in the cool evening air, a stark challenge to the years of suppressed wishes. I realized in that moment that I hadn't truly allowed myself to consider what I wanted. Diane, with her quiet strength and unwavering authenticity, was gently prying open the gilded cage I had built around myself. Of course, my changing routines didn't go unnoticed in my social circle. My mother, in particular, became increasingly inquisitive. "You've been spending a considerable amount of time away from your usual engagements, darling," she remarked over tea one afternoon, her voice perfectly modulated, but her eyes sharp. "Any new philanthropic ventures I should be aware of?" I deflected, as always, but a subtle tension began to coil within me. The unspoken questions, the knowing glances, they were becoming harder to ignore. I knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me, that my feelings for Diane were no longer a quiet secret. They were a burgeoning force, demanding to be acknowledged, to be lived. And with that acknowledgement came the chilling realization of the societal storm that awaited us. The world I inhabited was one of strict conventions, where anything outside the prescribed norm was swiftly, subtly, but definitively ostracized. Diane, with her quiet dignity and genuine heart, deserved better than to be caught in the crosshairs of my family's disapproval. Yet the thought of retreating, of letting her go, felt like tearing a piece of my own soul away. The choice, I knew, was looming, heavy with implications for both our lives. The pressure from my family became a palpable weight. My mother's veiled inquiries escalated into more direct suggestions. Dinners with eligible bachelors were arranged with increasing frequency, each one a subtle but firm reminder of the path she envisioned for me. I felt like I was suffocating, trapped between the life I was expected to live and the burgeoning, undeniable truth of my heart. One particularly grueling evening, after an excruciating dinner where I had to endure a financier drone on about his latest acquisition, I drove straight to Diane's apartment. It was late, but I knew I couldn't face my empty, cavernous home alone. She answered, her eyes widening slightly when she saw me, but there was no judgment, only quiet concern.
"Joyce."
"I'm sorry," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I needed to see you." The polished facade I usually wore had cracked, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. She stepped aside, opening the door wider. Her apartment was small, meticulously tidy, filled with books and simple, comfortable furniture. It was a space that spoke of quiet strength and genuine warmth, a sanctuary. I sank onto her sofa, burying my face in my hands, the weight of my world pressing down on me. "They want me to marry him, Diane," I confessed, my voice muffled. "They don't understand. They see my life as a transaction, a continuation of their legacy." She sat beside me, her presence a comforting anchor. She didn't offer platitudes. Instead, she just listened, her hand resting gently on my arm, a silent gesture of unwavering support. The simple contact was profoundly healing, more potent than any carefully chosen words could have been. After a long silence, I lifted my head, my emerald eyes, usually so guarded, now brimming with unshed tears. "I don't want that life, Diane," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't want any of it without you." Her brown eyes met mine, holding a depth of emotion that mirrored my own. There was a quiet understanding in her gaze, a profound connection that transcended words. In that intimate, hushed moment, illuminated only by the soft lamplight, there was no need for grand declarations. The unspoken truth passed between us, a silent, profound understanding. She leaned in, and we kissed again, slow, gentle, a promise to stand together. It was a quiet pledge, a shared commitment that resonated deep within my soul. For an eternity, we simply sat there, close, the turmoil of the outside world momentarily forgotten. It was an affirming embrace of our growing bond, a silent vow to face whatever came next, together. The quiet pledge made in Diane's apartment became my strength in the days that followed. I began to push back, subtly but firmly, against my family's relentless machinations. I declined invitations, citing vague prior engagements. I spoke with a newfound conviction, asserting my own wishes, though I still kept Diane's name out of the immediate conversation. The reactions were predictable: confusion, then thinly veiled irritation, finally a cold disapproval that settled over my mother's features like a mask. The ripples of my defiance soon reached Diane. Not directly, but through the subtle, insidious whispers that navigate the professional world. One afternoon, I arrived at Elysian Luxe to find her looking a little more tired than usual, a subtle tension in her shoulders. "Everything all right?" I asked, my voice laced with concern. She offered a strained smile. "Just a long day, Joyce." She glanced around the department, then lowered her voice slightly. "My supervisor mentioned some new corporate policy about maintaining professional distance with high-profile clientele. Nothing specific, of course, just a general reminder." Her eyes met mine, a silent acknowledgement of the veiled threat. A surge of anger, hot and unfamiliar, pulsed through me. They were trying to get to me through her. My family, or someone connected to them, was pulling strings, manipulating the fragile ecosystem of her workplace. It was a cruel, underhanded tactic designed to isolate and intimidate. "Diane," I said, my voice firm, "this isn't right. You shouldn't have to endure this." She shook her head gently. "It's fine, Joyce. I can handle it. My job is important to me, and I know how to navigate workplace politics." There was a quiet resolve in her tone, a testament to her resilience. But I saw the flicker of worry in her eyes, the strain around her mouth. The incident solidified my resolve. I couldn't allow her to be collateral damage in my battle for autonomy. I began to make more decisive moves. I started researching independent living options, discreetly looking for apartments of my own. I also began exploring avenues for leveraging my education and background into something meaningful, something that wasn't dictated by my family's legacy. It was a slow, deliberate process, but each step felt like a reclaiming of myself. One evening, my mother made her move. She cornered me in the drawing room, a glass of sherry in her hand, her expression one of forced serenity. "Joyce," she began, her voice silken, "I understand you've formed an attachment to a young woman who works at Elysian Luxe." My breath hitched. The words, spoken so calmly, felt like a thunderclap. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Her name is Diane," I corrected, my voice steady despite the internal churn. My mother's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Her background, darling, is unsuitable. It simply won't do for a Sterling. People talk. It reflects poorly on the family." "And what about my happiness, Mother?" I asked, my voice rising slightly, a crack in my carefully maintained composure. "Doesn't that count for anything?" Her gaze hardened. "Happiness, Joyce, is often found in duty and stability. You will cease this attachment. You have obligations." But I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw only the reflection of the gilded cage I was determined to escape. "I understand my obligations, Mother," I said, my voice firm, "but my life is my own, and I choose to live it with honesty and with Diane." The quiet declaration hung in the air, a definitive line drawn in the sand. I knew the storm had truly begun, but for the first time, I felt a deep, unwavering sense of peace. The aftermath of my declaration was not a dramatic explosion, but a cold, calculated withdrawal. My mother's calls became less frequent. Her invitations ceased. I was, effectively, being slowly frozen out, a common tactic in the Sterling household for anyone who dared to stray. It was painful, a deep ache in a place I hadn't realized still harbored hope for familial understanding, but it also offered a strange sense of liberation. Diane was my anchor through this quiet storm. We spent more time together, finding solace in shared moments, cooking simple meals in her small kitchen, exploring new neighborhoods, or simply reading side by side, finding comfort in each other's silent presence. She never pressured me, never asked me to choose between her and my family. Her quiet strength simply held me steady as I navigated the difficult waters of self-discovery. I started to apply for jobs that truly interested me, utilizing my background in art history and my understanding of curation, but focusing on independent galleries and cultural institutions. It was a far cry from the lucrative positions my family expected me to pursue, but it felt authentic. I also began taking art classes, rekindling a passion I had long suppressed, and found immense joy in the tactile process of creating with my own hands. Diane, in turn, found renewed inspiration for her sketches. She started a small online portfolio, showcasing her intricate designs, and I saw the spark of ambition ignite in her eyes, encouraged by my belief in her talent. One rainy afternoon, we sat in a small cafe, nursing warm mugs. My supervisor mentioned that the jewelry department at Elysian Luxe is undergoing a restructure, Diane said, her voice even, but I caught the subtle tension in her jaw. They're streamlining, reducing staff. My position, it might be affected. My heart sank. It was clear this was another ripple effect, a subtle punishment designed to pressure me. Diane, I am so sorry, I began. She shook her head. It's not your fault, Joyce. These things happen. But it's also an opportunity, perhaps. I've been thinking about focusing more on my own designs, maybe even trying to sell some pieces. Her brown eyes, though still holding a flicker of uncertainty, also held a nascent hope. You should, I insisted, my hand reaching for hers across the table, our fingers intertwining briefly. Your work is beautiful. You have a vision, Diane, and I believe in it completely. Her gaze softened, a deep warmth spreading through her eyes. And I believe in you, Joyce, she said, her voice a low, steady promise. For the first time, I see you truly living. We talked for hours, planning, dreaming. Her dream of creating, my dream of curating, and our shared dream of building a life together, away from the expectations of others. It wouldn't be easy. We knew that. The world, especially my former world, wouldn't simply roll out a red carpet. But for the first time, I felt a sense of purpose, a true partnership. We were two different threads, but together, we were weaving a tapestry of our own making, a beautiful, unique design, imperfect but entirely our own. The subsequent weeks brought significant changes. Diane's position at Elysian Luxe was indeed eliminated, a decision wrapped in corporate jargon, but the underlying message was clear. She handled it with grace and quiet dignity, focusing her energy on her burgeoning design work. I, in turn, secured an entry-level curatorial assistant position at a small, independent gallery, a significant drop in societal standing for my family's expectations, but a colossal leap for my own soul. We found a small apartment together, a sun-drenched space with large windows overlooking a bustling street. It was nothing like the sprawling estate I grew up in, but it felt like home in a way my childhood house never had. We painted the walls, chose furniture, and filled it with books and art, including some of Diane's beautiful silver sketches, now carefully framed. Each decision, each small act of creating our shared space, felt like a deliberate statement, a quiet act of rebellion against the expectations that had once defined me. My family remained distant. My mother occasionally sent terse, formal emails, inquiring about my well-being but never mentioning Diane or my new life. It was a wound that still ached, a void in a relationship I longed to mend, but I was learning to live with it. I found a new sense of family in the diverse community of artists and colleagues at my gallery, and in the unwavering support of Diane. One evening, as we sat on our sofa, looking out at the city lights, Diane showed me a new design for a necklace, delicate, intertwined loops of silver, symbolizing connection and resilience. "I was thinking," she began, her voice soft, "about how far we've come, Joyce. How unexpected all of this was." I reached for her hand, my thumb tracing the callous skin of her palm, a testament to her hard work. "The most beautiful things often are," I murmured. "I used to feel so lost, so restless. Like I was perpetually searching for a piece of myself." "And did you find it?" she asked, her brown eyes seeking mine, filled with warmth and understanding. I smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached my emerald eyes. "I did. I found it in you, Diane. And in finding you, I found myself." She leaned closer, her head resting on my shoulder. We sat in comfortable silence, the city's hum a distant lullaby. The road ahead, we knew, wouldn't be without its challenges. There would be financial strains, societal judgments, and the ongoing complexities of carving out a life that deviated from the prescribed path. But looking out at the glittering expanse of the city, at the endless possibilities stretching before us, I felt an unshakable sense of peace. We had built a foundation of trust, vulnerability, and unwavering care. And with Diane by my side, I knew we could face anything. Life in our small apartment settled into a rhythm that felt both liberating and profoundly fulfilling. My days at the gallery were invigorating, challenging me in ways my former life never had. I was learning, growing, and contributing to a world I genuinely loved. Diane's online presence for her jewelry designs was slowly but steadily gaining traction. Her unique blend of minimalist elegance and meaningful symbolism resonated with people, and the quiet satisfaction she derived from her creative work was a beautiful thing to witness. The external pressures didn't vanish entirely. My family's silence continued, a persistent reminder of the chasm that had opened between us. Occasionally, I would encounter old acquaintances who would offer polite, but distant, greetings, their expressions subtly conveying their disapproval of my new choices. These moments were often difficult, stirring up old insecurities, but they no longer held the power to derail me. Diane's unwavering presence, her steady belief in our shared path, served as my constant reassurance. One crisp autumn evening, we walked through a farmer's market, the scent of fresh produce and baked goods filling the air. Diane stopped at a small stall displaying intricate, handmade ceramic buttons. She picked one up, a small, dark button with a swirl of iridescent glaze. "This reminds me of a piece of moonstone," she mused, turning it over in her fingers. "Simple, but full of hidden depth." "Like us," I said, a soft smile touching my lips. She looked at me, her brown eyes twinkling with affection. "Perhaps," she agreed. "We certainly weren't the most obvious match, were we?" "No," I chuckled. A socialite with a penchant for quiet rebellion and a sales associate with a secret artistic soul. The universe certainly has a sense of humor. We continued our walk, hand in hand, a comfortable silence falling between us. The truth was, our differences, which initially felt like daunting obstacles, had become the very fabric of our strength. Diane's grounded practicality balanced my sometimes airy idealism. My newfound assertiveness encouraged her quiet ambition. We had both healed, not from a singular, dramatic wound, but from the slow erosion of unspoken expectations and unlived dreams. Our bond wasn't a fairy tale ending, perfectly tied with a bow. It was a journey, ongoing and evolving. There were no grand pronouncements of a guaranteed happily ever after, because life, we had learned, was far more nuanced and unpredictable than that. But as I looked at Diane, her profile illuminated by the soft glow of the market lights, I felt a deep, profound sense of contentment. We were two women, once living in vastly different worlds, who had found each other against all odds. We had chosen vulnerability over pretense, authenticity over expectation, and care over fear. The horizon before us was open, unwritten, full of both known challenges and exciting possibilities. We would navigate it together, hand in hand, forging our own path, two souls intertwined in an unscripted melody, creating our own beautiful, imperfect masterpiece, one moment at a time.